Oh, hi there. I've been a huge James Bond fan for a very long time now. It's been so many years since I've seen all these films, and Sean Connery, Mr. Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and of course Mr. George Lazenby have turned out to be absolutely memorable in my eyes. I've made a lot of James Bond videos on my channel up until now. You can find them all in the links down in the description below, and for your reference, some links will also be given in the I button up there. Today's video is going to be a very special one because today I'm going to count on some of the best James Bond villains of all time. Yeah, the best Bond villains of all time. Since the James Bond franchise is so very long and it has spanned for over 6 decades by now, with multiple actors playing the iconic British spy for so many years, there are a lot of villains and a lot of characters that are somewhere lost in the sands of time. Given the idea that there are so many iterations of this character, so many adventures, so many cars, so many Bond girls, yeah, the Bond girls, there are so much and so many things to actually discover about this franchise that it will take me a very long time to otherwise understand the deep, lore of the franchise. Today, our video is specifically dedicated to finding out the 10 best James Bond villains of all time, wherein I'll take all examples of villains across the 20th century. I'm not going to discuss the Daniel Craig movies because, of course, they are a pain in the ass, believe me. Today's video is dedicated to the late Sean Connery and Sir Roger Moore, who are no longer with us, but definitely this video is made for them. Very first villain on our list is going to be Auric Goldfinger from the 1964 movie Goldfinger. Yes, the villain played fabulously by Mr. Gert Frobe happened to be one of the best reasons why I love that movie in general. Everything about this villain is radically different from many villains of the entire James Bond series. There are a lot of villains that do a lot of time talking too much and doing nothing. But he was that one villain who gave me that idea that sometimes a James Bond villain can be incredibly powerful too. That particular scene where there is an industrial laser aimed at Mr. Sean Connery and Gert Frobe, there is Goldfinger is not willing to let him go and he says, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." That is one of the best and the most iconic moments in the entire James Bond saga. Believe me, he is that one villain who actually made me feel that, okay, villains in the James Bond lore can be strong too. And that is the first villain for the series, Gert Frobe from Goldfinger. Up here on number 2 is definitely going to be Rosa Klebb, or let's say Colonel Klebb from Russia with Love. The second movie in the James Bond series that is based on the Ian Fleming novel of the same name. This particular villain in the entire series was one of the best reasons for being, cool and very, very also responsible for making the movie From Russia with Love a masterpiece in itself. One of the finest classics in British cinema, From Russia with Love was one of those movies which had a very strange kind of production history. As I mentioned earlier in my best James Bond movies video, that particular film has had a lot of things going for itself, and one of the best things that was in its favor was Rosa Klebb, played by the late Lotte Lenya. It's funny that Lotte Lenya was nothing like what the movie actually showed you. She was a far better person and a far more funnier person as opposed to what the films have shown you. There are dedicated behind the scenes videos of those particular films, and if you ever try to find them, do try to find them on YouTube, or do try to buy a 2006 special edition DVD that was launched in the UK in an attache case. That was one of the best DVDs ever made. Believe me, that's the best DVD of the James Bond movie series ever made. If you ever get a chance, do collect those DVDs. Do really, really collect them. Anyway, this was my take on Rosa Klebb from Russia with Love. Number 3 on my list definitely is going to be Alec Trevelyan from the movie Goldeneye. Yeah, the 1995 film that practically resurrected the Bond franchise and also included Pierce Brosnan playing the 007 agent for the very first time. This was a movie that made the entire debacle, or let's say the entire James Bond adventure, a very personal one. Alec Trevelyan, who was supposed to be one of James Bond's closest allies, turns out to be a villain in this movie, and that entire segment of James Bond trying to come to terms with the fact that he's going to kill his villain is actually a very, very strong plot point, believe me. And with Natalia Simenova's questions on how can Bond be so cold trying to kill his friend who is now an enemy of his, that's actually a very, very strange and very, very strong kind of character for me. This is number 3, Alec Trevelyan from Goldeneye, played by Sean Bean. 4 here on my list is definitely going to be Sanchez, the villain that was the part of the movie License to Kill. The second film in the Timothy Dalton series of James Bond films, and the last one, of course, this was a film that actually is quite underrated. And I've mentioned this even on my best James Bond videos as well. The film is actually a dark and a pretty personal movie, just like Goldeneye, but on a far more dangerous level. Here, the villain Sanchez is definitely one of the best ones that I've ever seen. A villain that knows who James Bond is, and he's not trying to do anything despite him knowing it. And then at the end, he turns out to be this extremely villainous kind of person who ends up inflicting a lot of pain to James Bond. And we know how, because if anybody doesn't remember how, you may go and check the film once again. This was Sanchez for me from the movie License to Kill, and he's one of the best villains that I have seen in the James Bond films. Fifth and the last villain today is going to be Elektra King from the movie The World Is Not Enough. This movie is not exactly very special or very attractive or very Oscar material kind of thing, but this was an enjoyable film. And one of the most enjoyable aspects about this movie was Sophie Marceau. My god, the entire highlight of this film is Sophie Marceau, hands off. Hands down, she is the only and the biggest takeaway from the movie. The idea that she turns out to be a villain at the end is far more mind-blowing. She was the one that was playing MI6 and Bond for this whole time, and with that villain who has a bullet in his head that keeps penetrating inside. I don't remember that guy's name. I guess he was Renard. Yeah, Renard and Elektra King make a very killer pair, believe me. That is a movie that will give you nightmares even after like hundreds of times of watches. I've watched that movie many times and I still feel the nightmares. Yes, I do still feel the nightmares. This was the entire list of some of the best James Bond villains ranked, and I'm going to make further more James Bond videos on other topics too, maybe on cars and maybe on some of the other aspects of James Bond films as well, even the memorable gadgets, of course, and also some memorable special appearances as well. There are a lot of videos that are in the pipeline. Currently, I'm focusing on my Star Wars video. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel, and also keep buying movies on physical media. That's the only way we can protect all our favorite movies here. For example, I have the DVD to A View to a Kill, which is of course one of my least favorite films, but I still like it because after all, it's a James Bond film. So here's the video for today, guys. Take care, stay safe, keep buying movies on physical media. That's the best way we can. Stay safe, bye bye, and Godspeed.